Thank you for spending some time with me, and I think that you can
Yeah,
give us all a little bit or a lot of inspiration, information on the word pivot. Of course, I know that you already can give people a lot of the fundamentals and high level stuff about investing and stuff like that. We'll get into that. I know they hear enough of
for
that
sure.
crap from me, but I think
Yeah.
right now, what I want to know though is reality star, the pivot. I always say that I think all of us, I've lived 20 lives because I've pivoted constantly. And right
Yeah.
now, everybody watching you and watching me are in the middle of pivot. They're like, some people are like, man, I worked on this business for 20 years and I was finally about to retire, take money out. And guess what? There's nothing there. Why
Yeah.
did I even do this? Right? Some people are
Exactly.
like, some people are like, I wanted to start a business for the last 20 years. And you know what? I just invested on somebody else's dream for the last 10 or 15 years.
Right.
I'm going to do my own. And
Sure.
some people like right now, I don't know where I'm going to live or if
Yeah.
I'm going to eat again. Right.
Sure.
So the pivot is real right now. Right.
Yeah.
So how did you get onto the Bachelorette? Because you were a banker before that, right? A corporate banker.
I was a corporate banker. So before I even get into it, Damon, thank you for having me. Amongst friends, families, colleagues, you're an inspiration. Your story is honestly fantastic. It's an honor to even be here. So thank you for that.
Thank you, brother. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, my story, it's interesting. I grew up in Buffalo, New York, so small town guy, and went to, a small liberal arts Division III school. And from there, navigated my way towards banking. And for me, like, it was just like, I was going to do anything to just get to the next level. I looked at life very linear, right? It was just like this ladder. Like, how do I keep going up and up and up? And for me, I got to where I thought, success was. And I think one of the problems was is that my definition of success, I was just so worried about what other people define success as that I was worried about success in other people's eyes as opposed to my eyes, right?
Right.
And so it took me 10 years and 7 relocations and over $100,000 in student school debt to figure it out. But I moved across the country from New York to Seattle, left every person I knew back home in chase of what I thought was success, only to find myself really like in an empty suit. Like I was living my life through my identity and my title and really not who I was. And it was ironic that at the time I was so lost financially. I was so strong. I was at my strongest point. But personally, I was so lost is when I got a call from ABC, The Bachelorette, to potentially go on the show. And, if they had contacted me probably a year or 2 years before they did, I would have been like, nope, I'm so linear focused. It's not going to happen. But I kind of had this realization of where I was at versus where I wanted to be. And knowing that like kind of others were leading my life as opposed to me leading my own life. And I said, you know what? The hell with it. I'm going to give this a shot, work on myself. And ironically enough, typical myself, I formalized this detailed memo to my boss. And in this memo, I went through old shows talking about like the elimination schedule. And I was like, listen, it's likely that 80% chance I'm back within 2 weeks. There is a 60% chance I'm back within 4 weeks. And I went through this whole breakdown of when I would likely be back to work. And it went up the chain all the way to the president of the bank. They approved me to go on the show, and I took a wild detour that's kind of changed my life dramatically and went on ABC's The Bachelor.
But I mean, and thank you for the story. It's amazing. First of all, I think a lot of people here, or even myself, if I worked in a place and I was financially secure,
Mm-hmm.
bankers are known to be tight and stiff. They're supposed to be. They're not supposed to come in the room, woo, because you think that's going to make money, right?
Yep.
I don't know how many people here, because I'm on the fence. We already know how the story ended up, but what if I had just heard that story and I said, how many people here would take you seriously if you're a banker and then all of a sudden you're like, well, I want to go on the Bachelorette? I mean,
For sure.
your bosses or your clients, how many people here
Mm-hmm.
would have taken you seriously, or they would have said, sounds good, I think I need another banker now because this dude is crazy. You know what I mean? Like, You understand what I'm saying? And especially
Oh,
when
for
you have
sure.
financial security, and it's not, I understand you went to liberal arts,
Yeah.
but take it from another reality person.
Sure.
Thank
Sure.
God I'm on a show where we don't look at it as reality, we look at it as education and stuff like that. But somebody
Hmm.
liberal arts, being on a reality show, not liberal arts, you're not out there acting or singing. You are out there at the mercy of a bunch of drunk people drinking and arguing with each other and crying.
No, I think it's honestly such a good question. I think it all comes down to, you got to look at yourself like in the mirror and just say like, what do you really want out of life, and are you doing today what you always expected and what you imagined and what you want? And I wasn't happy with where I was at from a career perspective, and just where I was at with what was next, location. So I was kind of a little bit lost. And so I had to pivot a little bit and take this very conventional life of like banking and be able to sell people on why I'm taking this transition, and then be able to actually go into this world and be open. And what's interesting enough, Damon, is that I actually went on the show. I went on the show for 2-3 months of filming, got off the show, and right away went back to work for about a year. So that was actually one of the most difficult transitions of going from your everyday banker, dealing with clients, companies that earn revenues $20 million, $100 million and greater, and acting as this serious conventional banker, conservative, politically correct. But then, on Monday nights during the summer, all this is being aired. I'm going out and they're talking about me kissing and dating this girl and all this stuff. And my worlds really started colliding, and it was crazy. And I think you bring up a really good point. And the truth of it all is that there was a point where those two worlds collided. And I had to make a decision. Do you want to pursue A or B? Because you can no longer, I can't live this polished, politically correct life and then live this other life where I'm trying to open up and, drive change through my experiences, and get to where, the messages were starting to collide. So I had to make a decision. And at one point, this world outweighed this world, and this world was going to give me what I thought I would get out of corporate banking, traditional like blueprint route. So it caused a huge disruption and detour, and it changed things.
100%. So listen,
Yeah.
I get it. So go to school for liberal arts, boom, become a banker. Doing well as a banker, boom, become a reality star. As a reality star, boom, now you're back to being a banker. But even just in the questions right here, I can't even repeat some of the questions right here that they're asking. It's like, how many of the girls did you bang? Did you find free love? Did you find love? Oh, wow, you're not wearing a ring. I guess not. So I can't even imagine the conversations you were having in the room. And by the way, somebody on here said bankers are fun people. They used to be a banker. Yeah. By the way, I'm just saying that bankers present themselves conservative.
100%.
But I have spoken for a massive amount of financial institutions and banks, and the after party, they are the wildest people.
They're crazy.
They get it in. I know already. I guess crunching all those numbers give them all that anxiety. And teachers too. Woo! But anyway.
And teachers. Yeah.
So you go back into this world. Now, I mean, most of us right here would have said, now I'm going to go back in this world, and now I'm either the joke, or I can't get to my business because they want to know so much about this, or maybe now that you have a little bit of fame, they want to talk to you more, because if you really think about people, they just want to be around people they're comfortable with and they like to talk to. And I know Magic Johnson always says, he goes, I hate stars, athletes that walk in a room and somebody wants to talk about their athleticism or their history, and they go, no, I'm not here for that. Magic says, I like to walk in there and I tell them the stories about fights with Larry Bird and all this type of stuff, and the scariest times of my life, and contracting AIDS and stuff like that. And then after about 20 minutes, I go, all right, guys, we've talked about this. Now let's get down to some business. And people are like, bet, let's get down to some business.
Let's do it.
You see what I'm saying? So
I see exactly what you're saying. Well, I mean, you touched on so many important things right there. And first of all, I think one of the things that I hear when I hear the Magic Johnson story, and I hear some of the stories I've heard from you in previous podcasts, and something I learned after I went on a reality TV show, is that vulnerability is the most efficient tool in the world, whether it's business, whether it's professional, personal, the more open and honest you could be with yourself and with others, the more you're going to empower people to do things. And people could realize we're not these robots, right? There is this world that this message that I want to get out there. If there's one thing I get out there, it's like, break this damn blueprint that society has asked us to all adhere to, right? So I was living in this blueprint. I was the robot that said, hey, Jason, 6-figure signing bonus. I'm going to give you the title, everything you want. Just go move 3,000 miles and do what I tell you to do. You're my puppet. Okay, let me go. I was running this blueprint that's been put in place. And I think one message I've learned through all of it is that we need to break the blueprint, because this traditional blueprint that's in place just isn't working, right? If you look at student debt rates, or student debt is at the highest amount it's ever been, $1.6 trillion in debt amongst 45 million Americans, right? You look at divorce rates, you look at just like all indicators of success. And I think as a country, as a nation, we aren't achieving those. Our happiness levels are at all-time lows, and this is pre-pandemic. So my point is that whatever this like traditional blueprint, like the stereotypes, right, of bankers and all these things that are in place, they need to be broken. We have to lead the life that we imagine rather than living the life that, we have to lead it ourselves is what I'm trying to say. And I think to your point is you nailed on a few things. And I think vulnerability is efficient. I think being open sells, and I think just talking real with people as opposed to the script, as opposed to the way we're supposed to act and supposed to talk and supposed to look, is really what's going to move the needle forward and put you and everyone else in a better position to succeed.
I think those are perfect points, because I want people right now, the slate is pretty much clean for most people, and they can restart their lives, reset their lives, readjust their lives. What are they going to do to add their twist of what it is that they are to what they want to be? And I'll give you an example. When we came out with our clothing brand, there were a few people out with clothing brands, and I look up to Carl Kanai and Cross Colors and Walk Away, a couple of people, but it never was really done in my neighborhood. And when and a lot of my friends were kids who were hustlers and drug dealers, and trust me, I know that obviously I'm a little bit older than you, but in 1988, 1989, and rap and hip hop, I was selling to rap and hip hop kids, right? At that time, that was a very homophobic culture, right? That was cool, right? To say you're gay or you're a homosexual. We don't do that, right? And at that time, clothing was really only done by men that you see are like Versace and men who are a little flamboyant, right? And who happen to be from Europe. And so when I started to say to my drug dealer friends, I'm not selling drugs. I will not sell drugs. I got a pattern of strawberries that I'm going to make into hats right now. They stopped hanging out with me. They thought I was gay. Right. So I had a couple of issues with that. First of all, I don't want to sell drugs. I don't need to hang out with you. Second of all, I'm not gay. And if I was gay, I would have no problem with that. Who cares about person's sexuality? And third of all, I'm having fun. And by the way, when I'm selling those hats and T-shirts, I'm actually meeting a lot of girls, right? So I'm really happy about that, it's
working out.
It's all working out for me. It was a secret, and they didn't know. I was going onto the video sets and putting the shirts on rappers, and then talking to the video girls and eating all the food that was on the sets. I was having a good time. So what I did was I retrained myself of the way that the business should be perceived. Why can't a young person of color make clothing who are straight, who does not care about people's sexuality? And that's where I am. Okay, a lot of brands came after that, and we call them Me Too, but who are the people here watching right now who's just like you, who's just like Jason, who is saying, I'm going to redefine how this is done, and I'm going to do it my way. You know what I mean? Like all the music artists that come out who do it their way. You know what I mean? And you go, wow, later on you go, oh yeah, Lady Gaga is not the sexiest thing alive, but holy shit, or Adele, or
kick it ass.
Oh my God, Sam Smith sounds like the most soulful person I've ever heard in my life, and do it their way. How so what do you think the steps are? Are there any steps when you're doing inventory on yourself and saying I'm going to do it my way? Because I know you said you were very analytical on how you sent it up to your boss. So if we think right now, how do you give somebody some steps right now to do it their way?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, you hit on so many things that just drive me and get me excited. And I think about some of the things you said, and you go in this category, right? But Pope Francis, that guy was a nightclub bouncer, right? That's a crazy thing about, and now he's the Pope. Whoopi Goldberg worked at a funeral home, right? There's Brad Pitt was driving a limo for strippers when he was getting his career going. Daymond John worked at Red Lobster and the
Yeah.
popcorn stands and things. And so I think at the end of the day, like, everyone, change is constant, right? It's consistent. If there's one thing we learned through this pandemic, it's that change is never going to stop. And I think there's going to be a new normal coming. That's just my personal prediction. And that we, as opposed to letting change be a deterrent, to take us down, to derail us, we have to use it, I think, as an opportunity to move forward. We have to use it as a launch pad to move forward. So what I would tell anyone out there, whether you experience a change in your relationships, a change in your job, a change in your boss, your career path, it's not a bad thing. Like, this is, so the first step here is to realize that change is a good thing. It can create new opportunities. This whole quarantine process, I've totally changed the way I'm doing things, and I've started a company through it. So my point is like, I think when you are in some type of pivotal change, the first thing you got to do, and I'm curious your opinion on this too, is you really got to peel the layer back. Because if you're complaining or there's something going on in your life or change, we all can bitch and moan, but we really got to drill down and understand what the issue is. And I think at the core, when we're stuck professionally, we're usually stuck because of a couple things. We're just not motivated. We don't have passions that are aligned with what we're doing. Maybe we're not compensated the right way. Maybe it's that our skill set isn't, applied appropriately to what we're doing, whatever it may be. But I think the root of the problem is you got to see what it is that's really driving the reason you're stuck. And once you do that, right, you got to be honest with yourself. So I don't want to spin it back to you, but as a guy, I mean, I'm doing the talking and I've pivoted a few times in my life, but you have one thing that I just think is so remarkable, Daymond, is the way that you grew your career, right? But then once you grew your career and you became the CEO of Fubu and founder, and you blow up over $6 billion in sales, you then go on to the next thing. And then you go to the next thing. So I use the word launchpad, but I look at launchpad and I'm looking at the guy who, you wrote 4 books. You then become a television star. You then become a motivational speaker. You then become a consultant. So I'm going to answer the question the way I can, but I also want to ask you, how do you achieve such greatness within one competency and then pivot completely to be an author and a writer with dyslexia and take all these detours and then achieve max capacity in all those realms?
I think you're right. I think you first of all have to know your why and why do you want to do it, because like I said, I had that challenge when I was starting off with the t-shirts, and then when I wanted to write books, a lot of people said, I'm not going to help you with a book because you're dyslexic. How can a dyslexic person write books? And I just knew that I had to put 10 times more of myself into it. However, I also knew one thing: the books that are written, often they were books that were super analytical, really big words, super scientific. And I'm like, man, I just want to know how to become successful. I want you to talk to me like me and Cuban and I, or Barbara and I, or Richard Branson and I, or chilling at dinner, having some drinks, and and be like, yo, so all right, so what do I do when I make my first million? I don't want to hear I don't want to hear, here's the line, here's the this, that, over years. I don't want to hear that. Just talk to me simply. And that's when I knew that being dyslexic, I can speak simply. Yes. I also knew that if I take a public stage, and everybody can learn from this, because whether your public stage is 10,000 people, or as you know, it could be 2,000 people, it could be 2 people, I knew that I never wanted to say things out there that I wasn't 100% sure of, I didn't do my research on, and I didn't live in some way or another. So if I can show them something that stats have shown and said, listen, and here's my experience of that in my life, if somebody would say, if a professor would say, bullshit, I'd be like, no, not bullshit. That's my life, what I experienced, and the results I got out of it.
Sure.
Professor, I understand and value that you are brilliant and you have very clinical ways to come across this solution, but this is what I have experienced, and I'm only trying to share that with you.
For sure.
So I find that I did it for a passion. I took inventory of where are my assets and liabilities. My assets are that I've experienced these things. My liabilities are, I can't speak about it on a super high clinical PhD level, so I'm not even going to try. And I think when people try to go out there and press others, like you said, the blueprint of what they're supposed to do, I think that is where they hurt themselves. However, I also found that walking into the room, like you said, with compassion. When I speak at the big schools, I always say it before. And I told people this before. When I open up, I go, I'm not here to talk to you about micro and macro financing of the globe. I'm here to talk to you about what I've experienced and how you can apply this, because all the professors in this room, they can teach you that on a PhD level. I even have more that I can learn from these amazing professors. So thank you, professors, for sharing this with our students. And you know what the professors do? They start sitting up in their seats. So you take the anger out of all of them.
Right.
It's just like walking in a room in a negotiation, and you say, hey, you know, I know we're talking about this stuff, and listen, I'm sure your plate is full, and you're going through a lot personally as well. Are you okay? Because I don't even want to burden you with any of this stuff if I can't add value to you. For sure. And then somebody will say, yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Instead of somebody else coming in, man, I'm screwed up at home, and I need this deal. Because I.
Right, exactly. I mean, you nailed that. And the thing I take away too from everything you're saying, it's not the lessons that are taught in school, it's the lessons that aren't taught in school that really are what drive what we are doing every single day. And so when I started this company, Restart, when I started it, it applied to what kind of some of the stuff you're talking about. Pandemic hits, every headline, Dow Jones, S&P 500, markets tanking. So I just did a quick poll. Now my audience is it's relatively ages 18 to 34, mostly female driven, about 90% female, 10% male. But I just put it out there. Right. I said I want that's because of the show. But I put it out there. I'm just like, be honest with me, be real. If I say right now, describe the Dow Jones in 2 to 3 sentences, could you do it? Now, 250,000 people saw that. What percentage of those people do you think said, all right, I'm going to be honest, I can describe the Dow Jones in 3-4 sentences?
I don't know. I don't even know if I could do it.
Yeah, right. So the answer was 9%. 9% of the 250,000 said they could do it. So you got 91% of people who said, I don't even know what the damn Dow Jones is. And my takeaway from that is that there are just so many things in life, it's like things that you just mentioned, walking into a room, having good energy, negotiating, bringing the guards down, being open, being honest. Those are the things that'll push forward. And it's lessons that aren't taught in school that from every person I learn, all the mentors I have, whether I know them and have relationships like yourself that I learn from, it's like that is what really drives and moves things forward every single day. It's those lessons that you just can't learn in a textbook. You can't learn in a textbook.
I know people, and I appreciate you, man. I know people can learn on your podcast and all that stuff. And I know that I think Instagram only gives us an hour, and I want to make sure to get this information out. So tell us right now, and let's go through it slowly. Where can they find you besides obviously at Jason_Tartick, but where can they find you to learn more of this financial stuff and this inspirational stuff and how to pivot? Because I don't want them just to hear it from me. I want them to hear from me, you, and so many other people. And you find that people are all kind of talking the same exact thing who aren't in cahoots with each other. There's got to be something there to it. So where can they find you?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think one of the things about like influence or leadership is like not only do you have to have the ability to lead, but you have to learn and be led by others. You're someone that I certainly look up to and that I feel as though I'm led by. So I appreciate that. But some of the stuff that we're doing, we're on YouTube. It's Restart with Jason Tartick. On that Restart channel. Restart, like restarting, right? So Restart. And on there, what we do is 2 things. We do financial tutorials of just basics, things that you should know, how to eliminate your credit card debt, whether you're buying a car or leasing a car, some of the simple mechanics and things that other people won't teach you, you won't learn in a textbook. And then what we also do is we do real talk. So I talk to people like you, Daymond, and WWE stars and the CEO of Barstool Sports and all these people to understand not where they are today, but how they got there, how they launched their careers. And then we do one-on-one consulting with career counseling, financial management on jasontartick.com. And you can also find my personal Instagram, Jason_Tartick.
All right. And of course, a lot of people are just going
Yeah.
to Google you and find all that. All right, man.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate all the great
Yes.
advice, and I hope everybody can take from you and me that they got to pivot and do it now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Damon. I appreciate it.
Okay. Stay safe.
All the best. Stay healthy.